When we did our first kind of pre-seed, there were investors who were telling me, like, MIT founder like you, I would back any other idea. Anything else, I would back. I would rather you have no idea than work with local government. Whenever someone said the public servants don't care, I always took that personally. And the truth is, the reason it doesn't work is their systems. Government is a customer service organization first and foremost. Everyone gathered around our table. Well, it's tax season, so everyone's got to stop their job for 2 days. They stayed there until all the envelopes got packed, right? You can't argue with their diligence. It's just the system they were doing it through was insane.
Hey everyone, I'm Latif, Peracha, managing partner at M13. Today's conversation is with Parth Shah, founder and CEO of Polimorphic. I've always admired founders who are willing to go where others won't. When Parth started Polimorphic in 21, no one was looking at local government. He saw something different, one of the largest and most important sectors in the economy, running on decades-old software, paper processes, and also severe labor shortages. At M13, we spent a lot of time looking for structural shifts before they become obvious. AI is creating an opportunity to modernize industries that have historically been overlooked, and we believe government may be one of the biggest opportunities of all, the true sleepiest segment of them all. Parth understood that early. He built Polimorphic under a simple framework. If government is ultimately a customer service organization, the technology supporting it should work for both public servants and the community they serve. This is important at the city level, at the county level, and at the state level. In this conversation, we talk about building in an overlooked market, turning AI into measurable outcomes for governments, and why some of the largest opportunities are hiding in plain sight. Let's get into it.
Maybe we can start with just like what got you to get excited about building in government at the time you did, which is not the hot category it is today.
No, 100%. I mean, it was when we did our first kind of pre-seed in 2021, there were investors who were telling me, like, my background's in engineering. They said, MIT founder like you, I would back any other idea. Like anything else, I would back. I would rather you have no idea than work with local government. That's how bad they thought the market was. But for me, I had a very, I think, strong personal conviction in this. So a lot of folks, no one's going to deny here that government could be better, right? I think it's one of the most important, and especially now with where AI is going, it's becoming more and more critical in terms of being the underpinning for everything from how things get built with our permits to the infrastructure working, which is our roads, to social services, right, which is food stamps, Medicaid, things like that. And everyone's had that experience with the DMV, right? Everyone's been there, had that challenge with getting those services. And I think immediately the convenient explanation was to blame it on public servants, right? The reason it's not so good is because they don't care, the incentive's not there. And for me, my grandfather was actually a public servant his whole career, and he has some crazy stories from his time. He was a utility director, and he helped build up the entire water sewage utility in his town. And without going too into it, he was there during some times of, I think, extreme turmoil in the city, where there was a lot of violence, and they would have to go out at night and basically make sure the sewers, everything was running, and they would pull out bodies, things like that, to make sure the city could keep running for people. And so for me, I always took that personally, right? Like whenever someone said the public servants don't care, I was like, frankly, we all have cushy jobs. Like I get to sit on a desk, travel. I've never had to pull out a body to keep a city running, right? And so that's what our public servants do. Obviously, that's not the necessarily extreme that we're doing here in America, but it's not the sexiest job in the world, right? The reason people do it is they care about their communities. And the truth is, as you dive in and spend time with them, the reason it doesn't work is their systems and the ask and mandate they're given is impossible, right? You take a 6,000 person town, they're running more disparate business lines, from utility billing to making sure the roads are paved to permits, than even multi-trillion-dollar companies like Apple, right? And the technology they run on is pen and paper, right? They've been ignored. So for me, that was what I saw. I was at a small company before this that was in the smart city space, and they were trying to do all this fancy stuff on data analytics, and for me, I was like, we got to get the ABCs right. We're not even doing the blocking and tackling, which is customer service. Government is a customer service organization first and foremost. It's the most unique, it's the most complicated, it's the biggest, and it's also the most important. And so that was really, for me, the driving motivation was, I will say, like, I want to move this mean to standard deviation. This is a problem that matters. And so that's why we started Polymorphic.
And so when did you start, the business in earnest?
Yeah, so in earnest, we started working with our first town. It was a small town in 2021, and we actually went there in person. They were like one of the first cities to reopen after COVID, and we actually worked out of their town hall. Like had a desk there. We had our own little office, and there's some amazing stories from that time that I still think about. Where you talk about like being with your customers and being close to them. There was one time where everyone gathered around our table and just had a box of envelopes and started filling them with paper. And we're like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, well, it's tax season, so everyone's got to stop their job for 2 days and we got to send out and mail out these bills. And for me, I'm like, you guys can't email these out or pay, like people can't pay them digitally, or there's no way to send that out. But that was what they had known, right? That's the way they'd always done it. And they stayed there until all the envelopes got packed, right? So I couldn't, like, you can't argue with their diligence. It's just the system they were doing it through was insane, right?
And maybe can you talk a little bit more about the actual, what the business is? I mean, what the thesis that we love is an archaic industry that was paper and pen, paper and sticky notes, really, like leapfrogging effectively a decade of technology into the future with AI. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the product and how you're actually serving customers and where the business is today.
Yeah, so fundamentally, if you think about I think about the whole customer service journey you go through with governments. And so if you start at the beginning, right, which is for most folks, they'll interface with government for a variety of services, everything from, food stamps to Medicaid, all the way to like they need to get their house built, they just moved in a new neighborhood, they need to turn on utilities. One of the hardest parts before you even start the service process is, what do I need? Right? Everyone's gone through the websites or try to figure out which agency handles what. That is the first place that there is a huge problem. In government, I mean, there's stories about this with the IRS and other agencies. The amount of money they spend on internal call centers is astounding, just to make sure that people get directed to the right place. So that's actually where we usually start, is omni-channel, kind of AI customer support style flows. And what makes it interesting, right, especially in a world where everyone's talking about defensibility with how much Claude and OpenAI can do, if you run those models just out of the box on these data sets that government work with, which is super complicated, they're very peculiar, they're extremely like legally dense, but also need to be highly performant because they serve every individual. So you need multiple languages supported. Your reading level needs to be very, very readable, like 5th grade and under. And so its accuracy is 16%. And so we're able to get to 99% accuracy for the customers we work with. And then we go deeper from there. So behind the scenes, you submit that request. Maybe I want to build a fence in my backyard. Internally, the process to support that is extremely complicated, right? They have all these approvals to make sure that you've got the right permits, you made the payments, and there are different departments who handle all that. So then where we go next is actually in the service delivery side. And so we have this amazing kind of CRM, case management tool we built out, these workflow management with pretty cool automations. I was just talking to some folks in Florida about how hard permitting is there. And one of the frustrations is they keep coming back with like one comment, and then you resubmit and another comment. And it's because these reviewers are looking at a 2,000-page legal ordinance document. And so we actually have AI go on that and does a pre-review. And that's turning turnaround time from 3 months, 4 months, down to 2 weeks. We actually had a county that we work with that went to their commission and said, hey, if we didn't have Polymorphic, our small department of 10 people, we'd be right now asking for another 3 employees. And so that's the value, right? It's like 30% of their staff value is just this one product that they're using.
We had a board meeting a couple quarters ago, and I asked Parth about competition, where he sees it, and he got on the whiteboard and started mapping out some stuff, and the whiteboard stayed very white, i.e. I was like kind of shocked at how few competitors we truly come up against. And my view on that was like there's a lot we can do to optimize pricing, and there's things we've definitely got to get right. But the biggest indicator for success for me, given what we saw, was we got to just go super fast. Like, let's get as many people signed up as we can, as many states signed up, and get people using the product, because we know if they do, they're going to be on for a long time. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the growth of the business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the challenges working with government, but it's one of the great opportunities too. So like, there's things that, it's funny to me as like a data obsessed person. I'm often like paranoid about these things, but there's stuff that like we can't show on the books, but we know we have unique control on. So one example is the way we grow is very parochial, I guess. There's a lot of connections between cities, counties to state agencies. So we started, for example, North Carolina is one of our best states. Over 20% of the population of North Carolina is covered by a polymorphic customer at the city county level. What happened is we were doing so much work at that level, the state was starting to think about their central Department of Information Technology said, hey, we need an AI strategy. We need to build these kind of customer service and customer support tools. We're looking for programs to come work with us. And so working with the state's really weird, right? Where they had to get the legislature to allocate funds before they can actually execute a contract, but we have some interesting kind of LOIs and agreements where we're able to do projects before that and kind of get the commitment, and then as we're working together now to go to the legislature. So as an example, we actually did this project with the state of North Carolina, and they've done projects with companies as large as IBM, the Deloittes of the world, and their director of AI actually called me, I want to say like 3-4 weeks ago, and was like, hey, I know this is like a small agreement right now, but we literally have infinite work for you guys. You guys are the best company we've ever worked with in the history of the state. Like, you're the gold standard for what we've done with AI. We're going to figure out how to write like a RFP contract vehicle for y'all. We're going to go to the legislature and get money allocated for this, but we have an infinite amount of work for Polymorphic. And so that's the kind of things that we're looking at, which is, yes, we obviously now need to go get those funds allocated, go get those contract vehicles in place. But to me, a lot of it is we are now kind of the de facto AI customer service platform for the state. And so we're going to control and run that position and then use that to go get back down to the counties and cities by building what we're kind of calling the AI government network, because a lot of the counties are taking state questions, vice versa. So that's kind of our mindset and approach, is like, while we have this leading position, we're using price and penetration as a way to kind of shore up and close off the market for anyone else.
And so North Carolina, how many residents? What's
10
the
million.
population? 10 million. And so we do pricing, we're working on pricing per resident. And so what do we think at scale we could do in pricing in the state?
Yeah, so we price per resident right now. Our kind of top tier is like $5 to $6 a resident. There's 3 different levels of government. So for us, we see that as like a $200 million market just in the state of North Carolina. And that's with what we offer today. And we've got even more products coming out. Where we see this going is effectively becoming an extension of the entire city or county as a full department, right? Where AI is honestly doing, all these governments, they're facing with the biggest labor shortage in the space has ever seen. In the next 3 to 5 years, they're about to lose 30 to 50% of their staff. And just to give a sense of the scale of that, state and local government alone has a $2.2 trillion labor budget. So there's about to be on the order of $600 billion to $1 trillion just labor lying around. And our view is the work's going to need to get done. People's expectations are rising. I think if we do things right, there's a much better business than even just selling software, is actually becoming a part of the government and doing operation automation or business process outsourcing for the first time for these governments with AI.
That's the big idea for the Series B. How many states are you in? Can you give a sense of how national we are?
Yeah, so we're in 30 states right now. Our best states, North Carolina I mentioned, New Jersey, we've got almost half the counties. Utah, we've almost got half the counties. So those are ones where we're starting to really roll. The next one's coming on in a big way, and I haven't told Latif this actually. Michigan was one that Latif told us on the first round. He's like, we gotta turn that into our best state. And we actually just signed a huge partnership with the ERP, second biggest ERP provider in the country, but I think they have 95% of Michigan governments as their customer. And so we are their exclusive AI partner now. So I would not be surprised by the end of the year Michigan is one of those big states for us
All right,
too.
let's go. Let's switch gears a little bit. I mean, you saw the slide. By the way, this is the first time we've ever had our founders in the full AGM, and so I think it's a pretty cool and interactive way for them to see how we talk about things, and also kind of the transparency by which we try to operate with our entrepreneurs. But you saw the slide of the XY axis, and you're on the, it's kind of a tough slide because the Y axis, if you're a first-time founder, everyone's exactly on the same level. But as a first-time founder, how has that been for you? What's been hard? What have you learned? What's been tough? And what have you learned? And can you talk a little bit about some of the vulnerabilities that come alongside that?
100%. And I can actually share, I think, Lizzie, you were mentioning about how y'all like to really get to know founders. And one thing that we actually got to know each other probably months before we did our fundraise. And, it's funny. We talk about basketball all the time. I'm trying to, Lati's in the process of recruiting me as a Michigan fan, which is tough because I was born at Purdue. So that's a whole thing. A lot of folks talk about like, hey, we have all these portfolio resources and all that, and I think that's amazing. But to me, it's always been about like the partner and the conviction, and I think just the steady hand there, where it's like, hey, like we're gonna figure this out, we're gonna get through it, and just there's tactical pieces of it, but there's so much of it is also just the, I would say, controlling the spiritual energy of the company, and I think that's something that I felt like it's been very unique, and that could have been, I think, a situation that dragged out and probably had put us in a bad spot for a few more months. And honestly, we got that resolved within weeks, and we're like back on the grind, back moving. And I think I credit a lot of that to Latif, obviously some of our other members, but that was my first call. So I think that's the kind of stuff as a first-time founder. There's always like these weird things in board meetings. Like I come in, I'm like, all right, here are the things I'm interested in. There's always a few things that come up where I'm like, I didn't even think about that. And obviously at the end of the day, it's our job to build a company, our job to do the day-to-day, but I think having folks around the table who know where to look where I might not be looking right now, it can't state enough like how valuable that's already been and how valuable I expect that to continue to be.
I heard an amazing thing is when a company is doing super well and off to the races and everyone's chest bumping and high-fiving, that is a time to be like pretty serious and pretty strict about the things that might not be going right. And the opposite is when people are struggling, that's the time to really, try to lift them up and be a coach and be an optimist. So anyways, we're running up on time, Parth, but I hope you spend time with everyone here. We're delighted that you're in the portfolio. And from the early days, I told everyone, watch this company. It's going places, so no pressure, but we expect you to deliver.
Yeah, we'll deliver.